So welcome everybody. So to our lunch and learn for today. So Dolly Sullivan is with us again to present a very important lunch and learn on self-care, which is one of the most important things that we need to think about as practitioners, but oftentimes it ends up being like the last on the list. So I'm very glad you're all here, and for those of you who are attending remotely by Zoom. And without further ado, I'm going to hand the floor over to Dolly and let her talk with you about this important topic.
Thanks. Hi, everybody. From afar. And hi to you all. Pleasure here. I have to say, I find it very interesting that you said it was one of the more important topics. And I'll tell you that I have been fortunate of sharing what I've learned over the years on a variety of a handful of topics that I really care about. And I've learned a lot about that I think is worth sharing. And self-care and being a human service provider is one of them, has been for a long time. But invariably, it is the least well attended of ever. Honest to God, both the ones that I attend that I want to learn from, and the ones that I speak at. I mean, like when I speak on self-care, it is usually the least attended, well attended talks that I ever do. And so it was funny as I was walking up High Street, I was thinking, I wonder, the last few times I was here, which could be also a message to me, that I may not be the best of speakers, but I was walking up High Street and I thought, I wonder if the turnout will be as good as the last two. And in my mind, honest to God, I bet it won't be, and I'm not surprised. So I kind of chuckled a little bit when I walked in the door, because it really is one of the more, I think, next to policy and understanding how policy happens and understanding how to evaluate good versus bad policy and how to advocate for better policy. I think next to that, self-care and understanding policy advocacy, well, the top three things as human service providers, whether you're a social worker, a nurse, a teacher, a principal, an EMS worker, a fireman, a policeman, no matter what you do, if you interact with humans at some of the most intimate times in life, you should be trauma informed, and you should know how good policy and bad policy happens, and you should know how to take care of yourself. So you're worth something, both as a professional and as a personal human being, to the people that matter to you and that you matter to. So it's interesting that of those three, I would say trauma is probably, of the three, one of the better attended topics. After that, I think policy, advocacy, and self-care would compete for which is least interesting. And what's funny is that I feel like we live in a day and age where people are hungry for it, completely unable to prioritize it. I think we live in a day and age, just as humans, not even as human service providers, just as human beings in the year 2018, where there is absolutely no space or room for quiet and unplugged, being unplugged, not looking at some screen, I feel like we are a species who now finally yearns for it, because we forgot how to do it. But we don't prioritize it, of all of the lunch and learn opportunities for alumni, for current students, whatever, when they saw the series, when they saw the flyer, it was the one that most were willing to give up. I mean, really think about it. I mean, if you put it in your calendar, it's done. If we don't, it doesn't. And so, truth be told, I would wager a fair guess that a lot of people chose this one to be the least important. And yet, it's what determines our shelf life as professionals.
Yeah, I find that funny because we were supposed to have a seminar today for my field placement class, and I told her at the very beginning, I was like, I don't want to miss this one. I want to make sure that I'm here because I think it's really important, and to try to learn any of the techniques that I can about it, and other ways to do it. And she moved the seminar, so, because it was either move the seminar date or, like, let me out early so I could be here. Then I'm, like, missing both of the things, but,
That are important.
yeah,
Those are
right.
important.
So I just find
So,
it fun with that.
thanks for sharing that, and thanks for making it a priority and advocating for yourself, and for everybody, really, because had that change not happened, fewer people would have had the opportunity to come. And so, but it's true, and so thank you for being one of those few who really not only hunger for it, but make it a priority, and I'm as guilty as the rest of them. I mean, it's the easiest thing to let go, right? Because we think that it affects fewer people the least. But in actuality, from a long-term ROI, return on investment, it's the biggest falsehood we live and practice under. Because the lack of it, the lack of self-care, the lack of self-nurturing, the lack of intentional wellness, which is why I named my practice the way I named it, because I realized when it was time for me to make changes in my own life, the biggest part of my rocks in life was that I wasn't living intentionally. And part of living intentionally is nurturing yourself. Right? So I think the reason why we're so readily able to sacrifice it, or to sacrifice spending time and energy and effort learning from others about it, is because it's sneaky. The lack of it, the lack of self-care, the lack of intentional wellness, the lack of self-nurturing is sneaky. Because when we choose to do what we do for a living, you have to have stamina. Right? I mean, like, it has to be in you. Like, it has to be a part of your fiber. And it's not for everybody, right? I mean, and that's why the process of self-elimination is great, right? You get into your internship and you're like, oh my God, this is not for me. Thank God. Opt out. Good for you, good for future consumers of your service. So the problem is that it's so sneaky that you don't realize you haven't been doing it until something catastrophic happens, right? Catastrophic means different things to different people. But what I'm talking about is cumulative stress. Cumulative stress is and can be lethal. Because when you think of it in those terms, and you're really honest with yourself about when is the last time, finish the question, finish the sentence, when's the last time that you really set aside time and gave yourself permission? Because that's the biggest thing for me. For me, it's about, like, just give myself permission to fill in the blank. And I think that sometimes we attend self-care seminars or workshops and things like that. The presenter, puts up great pictures, puts up great destinations, puts up, all of these great suggestions about go take a vacation, go do this, go do that. Leave your entity, whatever that is, and don't come up for air for a week and this, that, and the other. And sometimes those just aren't viable options for most. So when is the last time, those of you from afar watching it, listening in, and those of you here today in person, just put it out there. Take a minute, take 35 seconds, and I'll do the same. And if you're willing to share an example of when the last time was that you did give yourself permission to just kind of focus on you, or maybe you were in the position to do so, and you didn't give yourself permission, and now that you're listening to this, and you've set your intention to think about this topic, maybe you'd be willing to share that too. But can you think about the last time that you gave yourself permission and you were able to carve out? And again, like I said, it is not a destination vacation that I'm talking about. For me, that is the fact that I have a really nice daily reading book that I got as a gift. that I can use throughout the year. And if I can just give myself 12 minutes in the morning, after my shower, after I get ready for the day, after I get my husband's calendar up and figured out, and his meals planned, so on and so forth, if I can just give myself 12 minutes, and sometimes not even that much time, to read that reading, which takes me all of 2.5 minutes, 3 minutes, and find a way to kind of apply that message to me, and meditate for 2.5 minutes, say a prayer for 2.5 minutes, and then go get my husband up, like that leads to a very different day for me. And it's really striking to me how different of a day it is for me when I don't do it, or if I don't do it for a series of days. So that's that cumulative piece that I'm talking about, where, it's been 10 days. And that book is a good one for me. It's a good marker for me because I'm like, okay, what date is it? I'm like, oh, it's November 6th, or November 5th. Okay, and then I realized the last time I read that was October 20th. And then I'm wondering why I'm impatient with my husband. I'm wondering why I'm not as terribly empathetic with my clients as I typically am and want to be, and need to be. Wondering why I'm filled with road rage. Just your patience quotient is like -25, right? Just patience alone. So think about what that kind of energy does for us. And it's a layer. It's a layer. The cumulative nature of what happens, this versus this. The 12 minutes, or maybe the 8 minutes that morning versus 0 for 14 days is phenomenal to me. The difference is phenomenal. So it's like, why don't we do that? And I do think that there is this kind of notion that self-care has to translate into something very big, very visible, very extravagant. And if that can happen for you, if you can stay at the most aesthetically decompressing location on the planet and do that for 24 hours or 30 days, what are you waiting for? But does it have to be that? I don't think so.
Well, that's not realistic if you were to, that's not going to continue. You would have to go somewhere.
Well,
You think that you have to go and do something other than just in your house,
right,
in your bed, reading a book that you like, or crocheting, or doing meditation.
Stay in your pajamas.
Yeah, right.
Not choosing not to go out versus going out, because sometimes socializing takes as much energy and effort as our work sometimes, depending on what the situation is. Just being able to say, I'm just not going to. Had a friend in from Ireland that caught me at the last hour that was in Pittsburgh, less than an hour and a half away, so leaving for Boston to his next professional destination. Yesterday at noon, contact me Friday. I set my heart and mind to go to Pittsburgh on Saturday so I can spend time with him and see him. He's one of the most important people on the planet to me. And by Saturday, caregivers in crisis, I could have found another person to stay at home, but I didn't have the energy to do that. And so I gave myself permission to say, I don't have a caregiver, and I don't have it in me to make the trip. And we're just going to have to make time to FaceTime better than we have in the last 2 years. Do you see what I mean? So it's like, just when's the last time? So that was more than 35 seconds. When's the last time that you can remember doing something like that? Or not?
I try to, there are two things that keep me grounded in life, and that's quotes and writing in my journal daily. And so if I can't write in my journal and the quote day, I look up whatever, find one that matters to me that day. And also I talk to my grandma once a day. So I looked at my journal. It's been since the 3rd I did it. And for me, if I don't do it daily, it's like catastrophic after one day.
It makes a difference, doesn't
And
it? When you say it's catastrophic, how does it affect you personally and professionally or academically? What happens or doesn't happen?
I start out in a bad mood, and I also can't focus through the whole thing. And another thing, my grandma had
Through the whole day, you said?
Yeah.
You can't focus through the whole day.
Yeah, and like my grandma keeps me on track. Like I'll tell her my worry, and she's like, whatever, just tell me. Wash your face. She like to her everything has such an easy solution.
Yeah.
And so
well, think about her generation too, and generations before her, and how much more simple it was to answer crisis. Like it didn't take, like people just snap to it. Yeah, go splash some cool water on your face, and we'll get better. The sun will rise tomorrow, and if it doesn't, figure it. Right? I mean, but we've really kind of lost that level of simplicity in terms of what we can do for ourselves. So I heard a couple of things in there. One, reading is helpful to you, especially inspirational reading is helpful to you. And I'm guessing it's helpful to you because you're able to find a way to apply it to yourself or be inspired by it. The second thing I heard you say was writing. Now, we use, I think it's 2 parts of our brain or 3 parts of our brain. 6 parts of our brain to handwrite. Okay, so imagine the kind of processing that's happening when we're handwriting. People are bringing, bringing their laptops to class and this, that, and the other. And I'm still a big proponent because when I write it down, it sticks. There's something about that. So even for people who don't enjoy writing as much, it might not be a bad avenue to explore. Just 2 to 3 sentences, tapping into parts of your brain that we're just not tapping into very much anymore. And then having that one person that you can reach out to that can just validate, normalize, or just kind of help pick you up. And if we don't have those people in our lives, we need to find them. Because they're out there. And they're important. But those are some really good avenues for self-care. Thank you for sharing that. Anybody else?
I do 2 things. One is every Wednesday morning I make time with me and Dad to go to breakfast. Yeah, no matter what, I always, I reserve that time with me and him. We get about 8 o'clock and we go eat breakfast. And then the other thing is, me and Mason are the only 2 guys in this class. And so me and him can just.
I wish there were more of you because we need males in this field.
Like we vent to each other. And we become friends because of this program that we can,
We
just.
can relate to it.
Yeah.
We can relate to the content and the interaction and the circumstances. Like to each other in a way that you're not going to be able to hear other classmates, for better or worse. So cheers to you for latching on to each other. Grad school is not a walk in the park, especially grad school in today's era. The vast majority of you, you're still having to work in some fashion and go to school. You still, the great majority of folks in school now, they've already found their life partner, they've already got kids, or they've already got commitment, socially, that maybe, years past weren't the case for the traditional student. The traditional student today looks very different. Traditional student time, the non-traditional student time was the one who had already been working full time, who already had kids, or who already, do you see what I mean? Like the list goes on. So I'm really glad that you guys devote time for each other. And I think the fact that you dedicate time to your father to the year is huge. It really does speak I sent you like little titles. I don't know if you used them or not, but did you? You know, the subtitle for self-care as a human services professional was, you know, pay now or pay later. You know, and it really is just like that. I mean, it's either you pay now, incrementally, in realistic chunks, to maintain a sense of balance, maintain a sense of routine, maintain, you know, because when we think about vacations as self-care, you know, like that's always a red flag for me, because unless you can take multiple vacations a month, you know, I mean, because like the vacation goes without saying, right? Like we just, like when you interview for jobs, how much vacation time do I have? I mean, it's a part of our vernacular, right? You know, paid or unpaid. How many vacation days do I have? How many personal days do I have? How many sick days do I have? How many, you know, it just goes without saying. But, you know, do you find yourself asking, so like, what's your policy on self-care? I mean, there just aren't very many organizations that make that a part of their own vernacular, their own hiring package, their own recruitment package, you know. So the vacations to me are not about self-care. Like that just goes without saying. You can step away for a concentrated period of time. That's just good for anybody, no matter what you do. But the self-care piece, as human beings in 2018, in an absolutely unsustainable pace and culture, and a human service professional, like you don't have a choice of pay now or pay later. So if you pay incrementally over time, then you're never paying later. But the pay later, the cost is anywhere from a lack of sleep and being grouchy to the people closest to you, including the people you serve, all the way to loss of license because you were so unwell and so not on top of things that you really screwed up, inadvertently, unintendedly, as it may be, license is gone, all the way to physical illness. Because again, this culture we live in thinks about our mind is one thing and our body is the other thing, and we can't have one without the other. And so if you're not paying incrementally now over time, consistently, it's pay later, and it's going to be through your body. You know, so there's just a whole spectrum of what that pay later looks like. And so if we're not finding ways, whatever that means. You know, I really enjoy walking. Until I got my office on High Street, I couldn't remember the last time I took a walk for myself. And granted, where I was working before didn't really lend to that as much. But you know what? I live in a really good neighborhood. And it really attractive place to walk around. It would have been perfect for me to step away for 10 minutes. Never made the time to do it. Now, sometimes I'll purposely not bring my lunch to work so I can walk somewhere to get it. You know, again, those might seem like small things, but I've been through enough over the last couple of years to test myself to know the cost of not taking good care of it. And I don't say it because I've mastered it. I say it because I'm a test case every day. You know, we all are. So I learned from you all as much as, or I'm reminded from you all as much as I hope it offers. Talking about not giving, I'll give an example of myself not giving myself permission. When I was asking you that question, I was thinking, okay, when did I deprive myself, or almost deprive myself when I had the opportunity? And that's rare. And that was about a month ago, give or take. I had a client call me at about 2 minutes till 3. Her appointment was at 3 o'clock. She said, I'm running about 10 or 15 minutes late. I was in the throes of various things at once, both personal project-wise and professional. I mean, professional project-wise and personal life-wise. So there were a handful of things that immediately came to my mind when she called and said, I maybe late. All of which, if I had started with that 10 or 15 minutes, probably wouldn't have left me in a good stopping place. I mean, I could have started something, probably may have been an efficient use of my time, depending on which I chose to address. But I also needed to pee really bad. And as I decided I'm going to go pee, I walked by a book on my end table that I'd really been interested in for myself and hopefully for the clients I work with, that it would be a nice tool. And I've had it since the NASW conference, and I've been reading it off and on since then. What was that? Chapters are pretty short, very easy to read, good writer. So I finished with it. And in the beginning, it was my Monday morning reading. So I was devoting time to that. Well, walked by and I looked and I thought, and then I came back and I started to really feel like that was not a proper use of my time. Like, these things need done. Take advantage of the time that you've got. Don't. And I finally just stood there at my computer and I said out loud, "Damn, Dolly, can't you just let yourself read 2 pages?" I swear to God, I said this to myself out loud in a room alone. And I'm like, can't you just let yourself read 2 pages? And wouldn't you know, the client was 30 minutes late. So she forewent a 55-minute session down then to 25, 30-minute session. And it was an absolute gift because I just kept reading. The book that I just been interested in for now or more. You know? And I really got some helpful messages out of it. You know, so again, not a terribly extravagant example, not really super spectacular, doesn't involve standing motion, full side seating, and free cocktails. I mean, all very great. Happy to partake. But that's not what I'm talking about. Like, it was just one of those moments where I really had to catch myself and say, like, what are you doing? Like, what is the big deal? Like, who are you hurting?
That's my heart. Helps to be a mess in the bad, like, mentally.
Oh, it
all
sure
these other
does.
things, and I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna sit and crochet 2 rows on the scarf.
Yeah.
And I'm making the scarf for myself, so
Right.
like, might as well do it, you know?
Right.
And then once you do that, you're like, oh, okay. But then I feel guilty, and that's what I'm working on right now, is not feeling guilty for taking that time because the house is so messy, or because I, maybe need to sit. Because,
Right.
I could read a book for class, and I could be doing all these other things, but I've been really trying to just be like, no, I'm just doing this right now, and I'm going to do it. And then, because I think everything happens for a reason, like, when your client was late, like, because you needed that time.
I did.
And
Didn't know it, didn't
right.
really realize it
Yeah.
until it was over. And I'm like, oh, that's awesome.
But the feeling guilty part is like what I have to think.
So, okay, so that's interesting. The feeling guilty part, which, I mean, can anybody else identify with that? Yeah, guilt is huge. And I had, even though I get it, I don't get it. Does that make sense? Like, even though I get our guilt, I still don't get our guilt. Like, what are we guilty for?
Because I think society puts this
Absolutely.
message that we need to be doing this and so successful and productive all of our
Yeah.
time. Then I'll sit there and like, if I want to go and hang out with my 82-year-old best friend, I'm like, I'm not going to get many times, and I'm not like trying to be negative, like she's going to die tomorrow, but I'm like, in the end,
Yeah,
I would
right.
rather go and hang out with her than to come over here and work on the house for 30 minutes.
Absolutely.
Or, when I am dying, I'm not going to think about, oh man, I wish I would have cleaned the house.
And that's the kind of stuff that, I mean, it's the truth. I mean,
And I'm not trying to be like,
no, it's not even morbid, it's true. I mean, when you are on death's door, or when there's a catastrophe, I mean, it really changes your perspective on life. I mean, I ask any one of my closest friends, and they'll tell you how I like things. I have systems. I have systems for everything. I mean, from the time I wake until the time I rest my body horizontally. My favorite phrase is horizontal is happiness, just so you know. glows on with happiness. And wow, I mean, I have systems for everything. And so with my recent change of events, in mine and my husband's life, it really forced me, A, to completely overhaul my systems. And B, it really forced me to say, okay, Dolly, you haven't had any quality time with your husband since the weekend, or since this morning at breakfast, or whatever. Yes, the dishes aren't done, but we go to bed early now. So 45, 75 minutes with your husband, vegging. Because I've never seen a human being more in the present than him now. I mean, I just, and that has been an absolute gift. He always was, even better at it than he could be. And he's just in the moment and veggies really well. Like when he looks at me, he says, relax. I mean, he just throws his, he says, relax. And he pats it to bed, like, get in here, cool it. You know? And I'm like, you know what? You're right. And I do that, and I'm at home. Like, literally, like, I'm feeding myself. I'm filling my cup. You know? And so, when the house is a wreck, and I know that gnawing feeling that you're talking about. Like, and you're in the midst of it as you're crocheting, and you're looking at it.
Yeah.
You have to see that.
Right.
Like, don't look at it. Don't look at it. Like, you know, because we live in a pace that says, you know, the only way to be good at what we're doing, the only way to be at our maximum is when we're not stopping. And I think the other piece to this too isn't just about self-care, but it's also about boundary setting. And that is a part of self-care for sure. I mean, it's part of the tools for self-care. It's part of the recipe on self-care. But it's an important piece that we don't really talk about because what it is that you're setting a boundary with yourself. Well, if you start to set boundaries with yourself, what are you going to get better at? Setting boundaries with others, because we tend to feel guilty when we set boundaries, especially the people closest to us. Right?
I don't know if anybody else has this problem, but every time I try and take a break and do something for myself, it really backfires on me. Like, a couple of Fridays ago, I was like, all right, I'm going to go over to Pabst. I'm going to sit down, hang out with him for a while. We sat down, had some wine. I woke up with the worst hangover of my life the next day and don't get anything done. Then this Saturday, I'm like, okay, I'm not going to do schoolwork. I'm going to go up in my building. I'm going to work on my shed. And I fall off a dang extension ladder and hurt myself. And so, like, I'm like, I just need to stay at my computer and stress myself out because I'm safer that way.
I know. Or just practice on the phone.
It's like the world punishes me when I try and do something.
I know.
Myself.
Does anybody else relate to that? I mean, there's just things where it feels like this is not my hard. You know, and the truth is that I get it. I do know that sense. I do know that feeling of, okay, like, I guess it's just not meant to be. But, you know, it was, and you did it. You know, and so just don't let that kind of stuff deter you, because whatever that is, separate and apart from the self-care, but there's something in it, so definitely pay attention. First one, I just say, drink a nice big glass of water before bed.
Well, it was just me and him make homemade wine, and there's so much sugar in it that even if you have
I
like
don't think you were going to escape that.
no.
Have a little midnight snack, my fruit and water.
And I'm a big proponent of never being on a ladder by yourself.
Yeah, I know. I got a good earful from my girlfriend for that
I
one.
agree.
And from him.
See, yeah, never by yourself.
What's that? The only reason I didn't is because she's a PA.
Yeah.
And that's why I didn't go to the hospital. Yeah. That's true.
What were you going to do?
Oh, me?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's kind of two parts. One thing I like to do is also spread quality time with my children. And I noticed that if I don't take that time, like I did it yesterday, and then of course I'm like, I really should be writing that thing. Really should. But taking it, I feel like I start to feel a lot better, and I also help with my anxiety because I'll talk about things that are going on, because
Oh, sure.
you go to sleep tonight, we'll be gone until 8, and we have to, and then you look back and you're like, I didn't even get to talk to you today. Like, I got to, eat dinner with you, say goodnight, you have to open in the morning. So you don't see them. So taking like yesterday was really big, and it felt so good. I didn't leave the house, we ate dinner, we watched a movie, and it was just the best thing ever. So setting that, and I realized the difference too. And undergrad, I would stay up really late, I wouldn't sleep, then I'd get really anxious because I'm like always snoring, and I react quicker to things because I'm not sleeping enough. And so I've noticed with grad school setting that boundary of I'm gonna get my homework done regardless. I don't need to sacrifice my health to get it
Right.
done. Go to bed early and then
That's
get
a
to
very important point that I'd like to believe is an underlying message, but the chance that it's not, like you hit the nail on the head too, from a general kind of, pay now versus pay later and bigger dividends, like bigger increments, bigger, a higher cost is just basics, like quality sleep. Like some people can really do well in life with 5 to 7 hours of sleep. Some people need 8, 9, 10 to 12. And some people are like, oh my God, I can never do that. You would be amazed. And the thing is that when they don't get it, even if it's that 4 or 5, or even if that's, it wrecks things. I mean, the lack of sleep, in my mind, is more costly to the mind and body than lack of, like, superb nutrition.
I freak out. I'm not getting something that would not be a big deal becomes a big deal.
Oh yeah, your ability to cope.
Multiple days in a row, I was like, a mess.
Your
Just
ability to
something
cope is
happens,
different.
and it's like the end of the world for that thing.
Your ability to cope with that thing or
Yeah.
multiple things that seem so small just dwindle in moments.
Well, that's the easiest thing to like cut back on, but it's the hardest to gain back.
Oh yeah.
Because like once you've lost that, then
You can't make it up.
Yeah, you can't make it up
There's no
unless
turning
you go
back.
on vacation. So.
Right.
Just kidding.
Right? It's not like that.
Yeah, right.
Right. So it's a hopeless battle when you're not getting sleep, but everybody's different. If you're that person, that quality sleep at 2 to 5 hours, 4 hours, if it works for you, I mean, awesome. But if you need more, then schedule more. And that's the other thing, just did a couple sessions this morning, and they both really good team. Like this is a really good team as a couple, really good partners. Just going through a lot as of late, lots of traumatic losses. They just need to talk it out, and talk about, how do I support my love, that type of stuff. And then it just occurred to them, like we're not really spending, they live together, obviously, but they're just not spending enough time together. And it was just kind of an aha moment after a very kind of organic conversation I didn't even ask. And they arrived at it together, and I'm like, you gotta get your calendar out. Like if it's not scheduled, it does not happen. So if you have a paper due, but you also have a partner, why do you have a partner if you're not gonna devote time to enjoy life with him or her? What's the point? If you have a paper due, if you have work, sit down at some point in your week and schedule it in, all the way down to your sleep time. It's better to grade than to eat, one humongous meal at the end of the day because you starved yourself, because everything else is much more important. Schedule time in your weekend to pack your snacks for the next 2 days so that you're grazing and being fair to yourself instead of depriving yourself and then gorging at the end of the day. Do you see what I mean? That's the kind of self-care that I think that I've learned and been learning, actively learning, is really what is filling my cup. Not just making me functional, it's beyond that. It's making me functional and living well. Like I'm living a happy life because I'm looking out for me.
Lifestyle change.
It is, and it's just striking how hard it is for us.
I find, it's hard to just find the time to schedule because there's all these different things that are going on and, then you think about it and then like your day is booked like down to every minute and to me that's really stressful because
Choosing, how do you choose?
yeah, then I can't be like fully there to like, have a conversation with somebody, because I'm like, okay, well I gotta go. If I don't go right now, then I'm gonna be late and I'll be 10 minutes late here, which turns to 20, which turns to 30, then I'm not getting home, until super late at night. But trying to find like that routine for myself.
Hard. Yeah. And it's particularly hard when you're in school. I mean, it really is. Because there are a lot of things that go on when you're living out an academic career that don't go on when you're not in the midst of an academic career, like whether it's functions, whether it's opportunities like these, whether it's, like just things that you don't want to miss out on because there'll be a day where it's offered to you, like it's offered to alumni, awesome, welcome, so glad you're participating, but then like just things change. And so the fact that you're trying to embrace it, but again, just remember, like if you're only embracing it halfway, is there a cost that comes with that? There are some things that we can do in our day-to-day existence, in our day-to-day work, personally and professionally, that we can get away with halfway. But there are some things that just can't, and that's how you need to base your decisions. Like what are the things that just cannot be done with a portion of it? Then talk about partnerships. I mean, there are just times where you as the partner or your partner as the partner need to be willing to take one for the team. Whether that means take one for the team. I know that we typically do this with and for each other on this particular day and time, but I get that you've got 3 papers due in 5 days. And you work, and you want to make time for dad, and so what can the other people in your life do to help foster your self-care? That's a big piece of it too. Not just, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, talking about something to foster self-care. My boss at one of the funeral homes I worked at, in the upper part of the funeral home, he kept stock constantly, a full kitchen, any food, a bed with clean sheets, and a shower with clean towels and anything, so that, like, say we're working and we're up at 3 in the morning, working on getting the death call, we can always go in there, we can go to sleep for a little while, we can make sure we have a hot meal. He made sure that we always have that, and I mean, just that will encourage your comfort. Like, okay, it's here, I don't have to go home, so I don't.
So when you get the call, you're not scrambling for bedding, you're not scrambling for food, you're not scrambling for chargers, you're not scrambling. So, I mean, that makes a very different work experience than the ones who don't account for that kind of stuff.
I mean, Ruby does not do that.
No.
Now, well, if you're a physician, they do.
Well, they have an on-call room.
Yeah, that's about it. But for regular staff, they don't do anything for us. Last coffee.
Which is like, burnout is real. And, and that's the other thing that we haven't even talked about. That, so we've talked about basic self-care, which again, pay now or pay later. Extremely vital, the least attended topic at any talk, any conference, it's just sad but true. So we know through this discussion the whys and hows, the whys that's not so good, and the hows that we can do it in terms of paying now, but of letting cumulative stress make us pay later and at a bigger cost. With these last few minutes, I want to talk quickly, and I'm sorry that it's quickly, but again, I'm happy to have coffee, I'm happy to have lunch, I'm happy to have dinner, I'm happy to be just appear with you, because this is a very real concept. That's just the notion of vicarious trauma. And actually that was the route that I thought I was going to take when I walked in, but things happened at the what it is, at a macro or micro level, the truth is that we have committed to working with our state and or our country's most vulnerable people, often voiceless, to some degree. And so whether you're working at a macro level or at a micro level, it really doesn't matter. The truth is that you're working amidst some of a individual, a family, a community, our country's most vulnerable, most intimate, most trying time. And when we have made a commitment to be there, to hold it, to carry it, to support it, to walk with it, it is daunting on a good day. And so to think that you're not affected, or in time you're not going to be affected, is at best naive. At worst, is going to make you a very mediocre practitioner. Again, macro, micro level, it doesn't matter. Again, we're human services. Okay, at a very raw point in time. And so that's the other piece about self-care. Not just about the rat race that we're competing against, but the very topic matter that you are going to be inundated with day in and day out until you choose to retire and move on to a different way of living. And it is imperative that you be mindful that these tips and techniques that we talked about aren't just necessary to live in the rat race we live in, but it's necessary to be a good practitioner. It's the truth. I mean, I could have spent the whole hour talking about this, and it still wouldn't have been enough. I mean, it is the truth. And you will find that there will be ways and routines and systems that you come up with, in addition to the things that we've talked about today already, just from a general, basic, day-to-day standpoint. You will come up with ways, and you will learn ways that work for you, and you will find and determine over time whether they're helpful or hurtful, functional or dysfunctional. Perfect example, when I left faculty in 2008 to join the group across campus in 2008 over at WVU Children's Hospital and became a family therapist there. I did it because I felt like it was a really, really noble concept that nobody else in the state was doing, and I wanted to be a part of it, having no real appreciation of what I was about to get into. And then I worked there for just even a remotest period of time and realized, like, wow, hey, like this, there were a couple of days I literally got in my car and asked myself, what in the hell have you done? Like, what in the hell have you done? Like, this is not what we were looking at. If we're going to be doing life consults, like, I wasn't just doing that, I was working with children and families with life-limiting and life-threatening illnesses. I was dealing with children who had addiction. I was dealing with children who went off a diving board at 12:02, and by 12:02.30 seconds, paralyzed from the neck down. I worked with patients and families that had their first pregnancy after multiple attempts at getting pregnant. And now, not only are they having a baby, but they're having a baby at 22 weeks, at 23 weeks, questionable whether or not the baby's viable. Should we or should we not go on? Blah, blah, blah. The list goes on. My heart was heavy. Most every day I walked out of there. And in the beginning, my way of handling it was I found myself, just kind of organically, I don't even think I consciously made that choice. I found myself, like, I'd go home and I'd shower. I'd go home, and I have to share this with some folks. They were like, oh, hey, good idea to get the germs off. Because I was in the hospital all day with a lot of crud and bugs. And I'm like, no, not really. It was really just the act of kind of getting the goo off, because it was just that heavy, because every twist and turn was different. you know, and I can have a client across the street at 3 o'clock at Chestnut Ridge and have a baby coating in front of my face, standing next to mom. I mean, it was just like that every day. It was turn, you just never knew. And I would go home and shower, and it really seemed to help. And I really thought, okay, like I don't know how you came up with this, but it really seemed like a good functional way of just kind of symbolizing that, okay, you're out of there, you're home, and now you're going to move forward with your evening, you know? Well, then it got to the point where I got really obsessive about it, where then I couldn't stop at the grocery store on my way home to do it, or I couldn't meet my girlfriends out for dinner and drinks because I needed to go home first and get that shower in. Do you see what I'm saying? Like the difference between it being functional for me and then making me dysfunctional. You know, so we can come up with ideas with the best of intentions and then start out those activities or those rituals or those symbols really work out well for us at the beginning. And then it can change. And so I shared that example because it's one of my best examples in terms of, like, it is critical that we find ways to manage the stress that comes with choosing our calling. And I don't know very many people who choose this field and don't see it as their calling. And the ones that don't see it as their calling, maybe it is really what they're supposed to be doing. But I am a little suspect and worries me. You know? But since we have chosen our calling, a lot of people can be their calling and they don't choose it. But in order to do it and do it well, and there's really no point in doing it at all if we don't do it well, because we're not doing the people we serve any favors, and for sure the hell not doing the people we love any favors. If we don't find ways to manage what we carry, it's pay now or pay later. Pay now or pay later, and it's just incredibly vital that you talk to each other about this, that you devote time picking each other's brains. It's imperative that you reach out to people like me that offer, like, hey, like I see with a colleague, like I'm sure there's something that you have that I can learn. Like, I'm happy to have coffee, happy to call things over. You know, like a different set of eyes and ears. Like, it's just imperative that you set aside time for not just self-care, but how are you going to do that? And, you know, maybe what you do this week to fill your cup isn't what you do next week, and that's okay, you know, but so long as you're doing it. If you don't, it really does shorten the lifespan of your career, and while it may not shorten the lifespan of your career by way of you actually physically exiting your career, have you seen a burnt out social worker? I mean, just be in their presence for one day. And it starts to make you question whether or not you're in the right field because they jaded you that deeply when it's not the field at all. And it's not the people you work with or on behalf of. It's that they're really burnt out and need to go. And shame on them for not having a backup plan. This is hard work. So when we don't make it a part of our day-to-day existence, we pay later and a much bigger sum. So I'm happy to talk more about it. I'm glad you were here.